morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Kim Davis. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Today is Tuesday, October the 17th, and what a week it has been since we were last together in this format. Wow, a lot has happened. A lot of sports has taken place, especially as it relates to the Houston market. For those of you who are just tuning in because you're Houston sports fans, there's a lot of stuff happening around the world of sports in general and just around the world. But of course, because we look at Houston first and foremost. That's going to be our focus today. So, welcome to Chalk Talk. I am your host, Kim Davis. If this is your first time joining me, welcome. We're here each and every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. If you are watching the replay, you are just as important as our live guest, and we ask you to drop comments in the chat, and I will get back to you as well. So, before we get started, as always, we have to send a special shout out to the people who help us do this show each and every week. I want to tell you about our good friends over at I Love Jinka. It is the fall. People are starting to have some sniffling things and some respiratory stuff in terms of issues. Maybe you're starting to feel like your joints are getting kind of achy. Well, listen, you are in luck. Our good friends at I Love Jinka have something that can help you. It's a turmeric paste. It comes in a paste, or you can get it in the vegan capsules, a powder. It helps with all sorts of aches and pains. It helps with things like blood pressure, high blood pressure, or helping to lower your cholesterol. Maybe you want to sleep better. It helps with a number of things. It is a high grade of turmeric is the main ingredient, and there's 7 total roots and herbs that are all great, and they work together to give you some of the optimal results. If you happen to be in Texas around an HEB, you can purchase Jinka at an HEB store. And here is where you find it in the healthy living section.
Here at HEB, in the healthy living department, the probiotics, you can find Jinka 7 days a week.
Yeah. Look at a lot of Jinka syrup. Look at that. Jinka.
And those are our good friends over at I Love Jinka. So much good stuff. They've been supporting Chalk Talk for quite some time and just been doing great work in the community. So if you have not tried it, treat yourself to some Jinka. You will not be disappointed. And of course, we got to tell you about Kimmy Treats. There's some great snacks. It features vegan popcorn, and there's a body butter that you don't want to. Listen, you just need it. It's great for your feet. It's great for your hands. People who have suffered with eczema have seen some positive results from it. You need some body butter in your life from Kimmy Treats. And there's also the Kimmy bars. Listen, you can get it online at kimmytreats.com. But if you happen to be in Houston, you can go to Sunshine's Vegetarian Deli over on Old Spanish Trail between 288 and Alameda. So not far from the medical center or NRG or downtown or Third Ward. It's really centrally located. You can go there and pick it up in person. And here is what you should look for. And last but certainly not least, this week, our good friends over at Sohum Skin. Stephanie Serlin is the esthetician. Seems weird calling her that because she seems like this kind of skin whisperer, if you will. It will be the absolute most relaxing and refreshing facial you've ever had. Sohum Skin. She will not only give you a facial that is great for your skin, it'll just be great for your mind and just your overall being. Plus, she will help you come up with the right regimen for your skincare so that you can have healthy, glowing skin without a whole lot of fanfare, if you will. So check out Stephanie over at Sohum Skin. All right, that's kind of how you'll feel. Like that music, that video, that spot, that's what it feels like when you go and visit Stephanie at Sohum. All right, so listen, The Texans were back in action. They're off this week because it's their bye week. The Rockets have had a few preseason games. And oh, by the way, the Houston Astros are in the ALCS. We're going to start with the Astros. Let's see. We'll start with the Astros because that was the most recent occurrence. So the Houston Astros have made it to their 7th straight American League Championship Series. The winner of this series between the Houston Astros and the Texas Rangers will get a spot in this year's World Series. The first 2 games were played at Minute Maid Park. The Astros lost those games. It is now 0-2 as the series shifts to Arlington, right? So Texas is now going to be playing at home. And with most teams, that becomes an issue. But with this Houston Astros team, they've actually played better on the road this year. Nobody can explain it. So them being down 0-2 and heading into Arlington to face the Rangers is not daunting. They are clear. There's a sense of urgency. They have to win at least 2 out of 3 in Arlington to still be in this series because it is the first team to 4 that punches the ticket for their spot in the 2023 World Series Championship. So what happened? Well, let's talk about it. The first game, Verlander pitched well. He gave up 2 runs. It took him a minute to find his groove, but if you give up 2 runs in the championship series, that should be enough to win. It was not. The Astros was shut out. They got nothing, right? They lost the game. They got no runs, and the final was 2-0, right? Well, he gave up 2. They just never could get on the board. Last night, game 2, you had Framber Valdez taking the mound for the Astros, and Nathan Eovaldi, who started for the Rangers. It was not Framber's finest outing. He didn't have a great outing in Minnesota in game 2, against Minnesota in game 2, and last night he didn't make it through. He made it, 2 innings, 2 innings and a third or so. The first inning was rocky. He gave up 4 earned runs in the first inning. He had a couple of errors. They were hitting him like off the first pitch. It wasn't a great start, and he couldn't seem to get it together. So they were in a hole early. They lost game 2. The final was 5-4. They battled back. They got some offense. Jordan Alvarez, who struck out 3 times in game 1, had 2 homers in game 2. But they couldn't pull it out. The final score was 5-4 with the Rangers winning. But here's the thing. The Astros had runners on base. It was bases loaded, no outs, and they couldn't punch anybody in. They had runners in scoring position more than once, and they couldn't get anything done. Here's Dusty Baker after the game, just talking about the team's, I guess, lack of offense, if you will, unable to push it across to get a hit when they really needed to create some offense and some runs.
I mean, the guys up there are, doing their damnedest to push those runs across, and, Eovaldi, made some quality pitches after we had him in trouble. And, like I said before, the name of the game is RBIs. So we just said push those runs across. Questions?
So one of the people who came up with bases loaded and was unable to do anything was Chas McCormick. And I mentioned him because he talked to us after the game in the clubhouse. And Chas is a guy that many of fans have been declaring for. Give us Chas, and you got Chas, and he just was not. He was not able to do anything last night. It's not all on Chas. You had Altuve and Tucker, who I think were a combined 0 for 17 in this series. So you've got people that you expect to be able to generate some offense who haven't done it yet. Well, here's Chas McCormick in the clubhouse last night. Clearly not happy with his performance.
It sucks. Personally, I had 2 chances tonight to help the team win, and I'm swinging at fucking balls. So I got to figure out, not to swing at everything. And I'm just, especially in that situation, the 8th inning, I need, I'm up there always ready to swing. I need to take pitches there. He was a little bit out of the zone, and those weren't balls that I could drive, and I'm swinging them. So I shouldn't be doing that, and it sucks. they beat us the first game we didn't hit that well. It's all right. I thought we had chances to win tonight. I thought we could have won tonight. But their bullpen's doing a good job. Their starters are going long enough. And it does suck because we had chances to win tonight. And, personally, I had big 2 at-bats to put the guys ahead or, try to tie it at least, get the game a little closer, and I didn't do that tonight.
So while Chaz, like the other players in the clubhouse, are disappointed, they are not defeated, right? They realize, listen, you know what? It's the first of 4. And so they need to go to Arlington and win at least 2 there. It'd be great if they could get all 3, but they got to win 2 if they want to bring this back home and have a chance to win this series. So they head up to Arlington. Game 3 is Wednesday. Game 4 is Thursday. If there's a game 5, if they're able to win a couple of games, game 5 will be on Friday. So they play Wednesday, Thursday, game 5 if necessary. And if they're able to, get back in this series, they'll come back home and play game 6 and 7 on Sunday and Monday. So how does Chaz feel about the rest of the series and the opportunity that this team has? Here's what he said.
Good thing is we play a little better on the road. We played well at that stadium. We got to win 2 out of 3 going over there. So it's do or die at this point, and got to play with the urgency. We have been playing with the urgency, but we need to capitalize a little more. I just don't think we've been capitalizing on our chances to take the lead or get closer into the game.
Chaz, why do you?
So that was Chaz McCormick last night after the Astros fell to the Rangers 5-4. They got down big. They got down 4-0 early, right off the top. The Rangers got another run later in the game, and they battled back. They got to 4, couldn't get to 5, left runners stranded a couple of really key, crucial times, especially when you've got bases loaded, nobody out. So first time that happened, Dusty pinch hit from Maldi. He was coming up. He pinch hit and brought in Yainer Diaz, who is hitless in this postseason. And here's what's funny. Like, I'm watching the game, and periodically I look at the chatter, the conversation that's going on online, and I just kind of shake my head. Because for those people, and some of you may even watch the show, but for those who have decided that nothing Dusty Baker does is good enough, that nothing Dusty Baker does is good enough, right? You clamor for Yainer Diaz, and then he pinch hits and brings in Yainer from Maldi because they're trying to, it's key, right? It's a crucial moment. And Yainer doesn't do anything. And I see people, even somebody who one of the guys I know and likes, like, well, that's Dusty's fault because he's misused him and he wasn't ready. I need for y'all to stop. If you're one of those people, I just need you to stop because you're a professional baseball player. And the key is you've got to be ready. And so when Dusty talked about using different players throughout the season, like using Dubon sometimes and using, McCormick and different players so that he can get as many people ready as possible, y'all had a problem with that. Okay. Then you're like, he had to just bring in Yainer. And so I don't really know. I don't think the people who are just anti-Dusty, because that's what I'm going to call you, I don't think you have a plan. I don't think you're realistic in understanding how this game works. And so what I would say is stop it. Okay. I don't know. Was it Dusty's fault that Chaz swung at balls in the dirt last night? You never hear Dusty talk about any of those things. He believes in his players and he brings them in, he gives them a shot, he gives them a support, but you've got to do your job. Think about your job, whatever you do for a living, whether you work for yourself, if you work for somebody else. How does it work? You want an opportunity, then when you get it and you don't perform, somebody says to you, well, you didn't perform, and your response is, well, if I'd gotten more opportunities earlier, then I would be ready for now. Is that how it works? Because that's what we're talking about, right? That's the same thing. When you get an opportunity, you have got to seize the moment. Your team is counting on you. You've got to perform. That's how people get spots. That's how you take over, spots in the lineup or in a pitching order or on a job and you get a promotion. No one says, okay, Kim, I'm going to give you the shot to go and anchor this show right now. And then I show up and say, well, I didn't really do well because you hadn't given me the chance before. That isn't how it works in life, in any other business, and that's not how it works in baseball. When Yainer Diaz gets to the plate, he needs to be productive. When Chad McCormick comes to the plate, just like an Altuve, just like a Tucker, they've got to be productive and stop with the excuses. They aren't making the excuses. So just stop and realize that Dusty Baker is not the reason that this team is 0-2. If you go 0 for 17 between your one and a couple of your main guys in your lineup, 0 for 17 in 2 days, that could be one of the reasons. If you have bases loaded and no outs and you don't get anything out of it, that could be a reason. You can't blame Dusty for that, guys. Just stop it. I think he's managing a good series. Framber struggled last night. I heard somebody say, I was listening to the post-game, the 10th inning show when I was driving home after I did post-game, and I heard somebody say, well, he should have pulled Maldi sooner. I mean, he should have pulled Framber sooner. So here's the thing. The next person he brought in was Phil Maton. You got to give the reliever some time to warm up. No one's warming up in the first inning thinking that your starter is not going to make it. They're not going out in the second inning warming up thinking, okay, they're not going to make it, right? He gets through the first inning, it's rocky. You're hoping that he can give you a little more in the second, but if they go out and Phil Maton starts warming up right away, you've got to give him time. So it's not just like Dusty can snap his fingers like magic and say, somebody come in. It is a process, and pitchers need time to warm up. Different pitchers need more time. You don't start the game warming up your bullpen, because who's expecting your starter not to get out of the second inning? It's not how it works. So stop that too. He went to the bullpen as soon as he could, and you're hoping that, listen, it was feast or famine yesterday for Framber Valdez. I'm sitting there in the stadium. I'm going, so either he gets a strikeout or they get on base. There is no in between. There's not a putting the ball in play and getting it out. It was a matter of, it was feast or famine for him. So he had some stuff, but he just, he made a couple of costly fielding errors, and they were really costly, and he just never recovered. So I don't think that it was really an opportunity for Dusty to bring in relief sooner, because you have to give the guys in the bullpen, you have to give Maton, whoever you were going to last night, it was Maton, you got to give him time to warm up, because that didn't help either. Bring somebody in who's not warm. So what happens? He could get injured, and then he's not ready, and it's not giving you what you need in relief, is to stop the bleeding. So that's just not, I wanted to share that, because that's emotional, that's not realistic, and that's not how it works. All right. So Game 3, Wednesday night in Arlington, Javier Christian will take the mound for the Houston Astros. I believe the Rangers are sending Max Scherzer, who's been out. He's been injured. This will be his first game back. So I think that is who they're sending to the mound tomorrow. I know that Javier Christian is who the Astros are sending to the mound. So that is where we are in the ALCS. It is not over. I'm looking forward to Game 3, and the Astros, listen, they got to swing the bat. They need another good outing for Javier Christian. He has been good of late. They need more of that from him, and they've got to get some offense to support him, because you got to have both. All right. But there have been some wins for the Houston market team since last week. The Houston Texans played the Saints on Sunday at NRG Stadium. A lot of Saints fans in the building. We know Saints travel. It's our neighboring state in Louisiana. And then, quite frankly, there are a lot of Saints fans who just live in the market. So it was a Saints crowd a bit, but the Houston fans did, as usual, hold their own. And the Texans walked away with a victory, a 20-13 victory. It wasn't pretty at times, but they won it. CJ Stroud, the rookie quarterback, that you really couldn't be more pleased with his performance, threw his first interception of his young NFL career. But on that particular play where he threw the interception, the Saints player ran a bit, Nico was able to strip him, Collins, for a fumble, and Titus Howard recovered it. So even though there was an interception, it was recovered, and the Texans had a first down. I'm just saying, the Texans, So while there are some things that didn't go well for the Texans, here are some things that did. I will tell you, Alvin Kamara, who runs the ball really well. He's somebody you always have to be concerned about. He ended up with 68 yards, no touchdowns, rushing, and in the passing game, 36 yards. His longest was 15. But they did a really good job of, I want to say, limiting him and his offensive production on Sunday. Even though every time he touched the ball, I was gasping for air. Texans ran the ball better. I believe they had 97 rushing yards in the first half. They finished with 120. The combination of Motor, Devin Singletary, and Damian Pierce was effective. Motor had 58 yards. His longest was 17. And Damian had 34 yards. His longest was 8. So they did a much better job of being able to run the ball. In terms of receiving, CJ connected with Schultz for a touchdown, another big play, and also Robert Woods for a touchdown. They are continuing to, to find their chemistry, if you will. Steven Nelson had another interception on Sunday, and in terms of kickoff returns, nothing real special. Devin Singletary had one. He ran back for 18 yards. But ultimately, the number that really matters is that the Texans won. The final was 20-13. They were better in the red zone. Okay. Not great, but they did score some in the red zone. Here is head coach DeMeco Ryans. Now the team is 3-3. It is the bye week. So they have this week off. They're actually not practicing today. Nick Caserio is meeting the media. I'll have to get it from the tape because he is meeting with the media right now while I am talking with you. So I don't know what he's saying, but I'll tell if there's anything meaningful, I'll be sure to share it across all of my platforms wherever you're watching this show today. But here is DeMeco talking about really kind of his overall thoughts after Sunday's game and just where they are heading into this bye week.
Feeling good about our team and where we are. We're learning who we are, as a team, as we continue to grow and work together. We're learning who we are, our strengths, weaknesses, what we do well, right? Things we need to lean into more, right? Opportunities we need to give more guys some opportunities. Guys earn their right. So we'll continue to work through that and see where we are. But I like where our team is, headed into the bye, 500. We've done some things really well, but proud of the way the guys played yesterday, proud of the win, but there's also still a lot of things that we can clean up, a lot of things that we can improve on, but I'm encouraged with where we are as a team.
That was DeMeco yesterday, really talking about overall, as you heard him say, where they are as a team. They are 3-3, and you can look at it and say, man, they could have won that game against Atlanta. They'd be 4-2. Well, there's a lot of things you could say if they had done. But their record is 3-3, right? So DeMeco also talked about where this team, what they've learned, where the growth is to this point. We're 6 games in. It's a bye week. Here's his thought about where the team is growing and, really what's ahead.
Yeah, I think we've grown the most in learning what it takes, right, to win. And that's the biggest thing you have to figure out as a young team. Like, what does it take to win consistently throughout the league? What does that preparation look like throughout the week? And I think our guys they're starting to see what it takes when you have a great week and what is that result on Sunday. And when the week doesn't go so hot, like how does it look on Sunday? So our guys are they're learning that. They're learning, all right, individually what their process has to look like throughout the week, how they're prepping, how they're studying, how they're taking care of their bodies. Like, you start to get into a routine, especially with a ton of young players. Right? They have to learn how they can sustain throughout such a long season, and they're learning that.
They are learning it. I think it's DeMeco's his presence, right? The way he's excited, the way he is encouraging. Even CJ said after he threw the interception, how DeMeco, is still supportive, uplifting the whole 9 yards, um, tells them the truth, is honest with them, but understands it because he's been there, right? He's been a player, and it does make a difference. But also as a leader, his leadership style seems to connect with these young players and with the veteran players as well. Um, Somebody asked a question of DeMeco yesterday. How do you get talking about expectations? Now there's like, oh, well, they're in the hunt. They could possibly, when you look at the race and you look at the standings in the AFC South, the Texans are not out of it, right? The team with the best record is 4-2, and then there's 3-3. I mean, how do you deal with that? And really, when you talk about the expectations, what do you expect from this team? He addressed that a little bit on yesterday. Here is what he had to say about that.
My thoughts is just 1 week at a time. So I don't look at it in totality like that, like, 6 weeks, where will we be? Like, we are where we deserve to be, right? We've won some tough games, as has been said. We've lost some close ones that we probably, looking back, man, we should have won those, but it doesn't matter. We are exactly where we should be at this time. We're 3-3. That's who we are, right? And for us to continue to progress and do well throughout the stretch, right, we just have to consistently look at, right, those things that we've done well, right, and continue to hone in on those things and be consistent when we step out there on Sunday. All right? Thank you, guys.
That was DeMeco Ryans. He said, we are where we should, when people always, you hear people sometimes say, well, yeah, they're better than the record says they are. He says, we are where we're supposed to be. We are where we are. We are 3-3. There are games that you think, man, like the game against the Falcons in Atlanta. That's one that, you watch it and you say that's one they could have had, but they didn't. So they're 3-3. You think about other games where perhaps they could have done some things differently. Maybe they could have gotten a victory, but they're 3-3, and they're going to take that into this bye week. He said that, he hopes the guys step away from the game for a minute, physically, mentally, do what you have to stay fresh, but give yourself a break because it's a long grind. It's a long season. You have training camp, you have OTAs. There's not a whole lot of off season, if you will, as a professional athlete, especially in football, and that with the National Football League. There's a lot of time you've got to put into this. So take this break 6 weeks in. There are 11 games left. And when they come back, they will be heading on the road to play the Carolina Panthers in Charlotte, a game that looks to be, at this point, it's a game that, I think if you follow this Texans team, you're like, that's a game that they should be able to win, but they've got to get to it. So this week, listen, DeMeco said he's looking forward to being in the carpool lines a little bit longer. That gives him more time with the kids. He's not able to do that all the time. Obviously when they have practice and when he has meetings, he has super long days, but he's looking forward to it. He said he looks forward to being in that because those 30 minutes that you're sitting in the line, dropping your kids off from school, is just 30 more minutes that you have a chance to spend with them and talk to them, right? So he's encouraging the guys to take time to be with their families, get the break so they can come back next week and be refreshed. In terms of injuries, the expectation is that Tank Dell will be ready to play when they come back. He was out because he was in concussion protocol, so he missed this past game against the Saints. Juice Scruggs, who's been out all season, he's been injured since camp. Not sure yet. We'll get an update on him after the break. And then a guy like Denzel Perryman, who's been practicing, but he's got that club on his hand. They thought this past week it just made sense to, not to rush him back since you had Christian Harris back so that he can, hopefully get the club off his hand and be effective and not have to come out and play with one hand. So all of those things go into it. Good morning, my friend, Charles Mardraden. It's great to have you here. We also are going to talk a little bit about what's happening around the world. But before we get to that, I do want to talk about this war, right? Because we do that here, current events. I hope all of you got registered. Last week was the cutoff on the 10th to register for the fall elections. If you didn't get registered in time for the fall elections of 2023, I'm going to encourage you to go ahead and register anyway. If you stay registered, you don't have to get registered, and every election matters, right? Local elections, county elections, city, state, whatever's going on, your voice needs to be heard. And the only way that can happen is if you are registered to vote. Once you register, then we're going to talk about you being an informed voter, because at the end of the day, you want to be able to vote your values. And the best way to do that is to understand the people and the policies that the people are pushing, so you know where you should fall. All right, so listen, before we talk about some of the things that are happening around the world, let's talk a little bit about the NBA and the Houston Rockets. The Rockets are in preseason. They are 3-0 to this point. They are in San Antonio. They played the Spurs last night. That was a win for the Houston Rockets. The final, I have to pull it up because I have to look at it to tell you, because I did watch it. But last night, the final was 99-89. They trailed at one point by 13 points to the Spurs. And while this is preseason, we know that once the regular season starts next week, they open the regular season on the road in Orlando on October the 25th. So it's a week from tomorrow. That's their first regular season game. Then they go back to play in San Antonio. Their home opener is on the 29th against Golden State. That's a Sunday. But these games are helping them figure out who they are and how the work that the installations of defense and the new pieces and the new coach, how it all goes together. Preseason is really very, very important. So they won at Indiana, at home against Indiana, 103-122. They went and played on the road, not in New Orleans, but against the Pelicans on the road. That final was 120-87. Last night they were in San Antonio and defeated the Spurs 99-89. Their next preseason game is tomorrow night, also against the Spurs in San Antonio at 7. And then they finish out preseason on Friday night at home against the Miami Heat. Then they have about 5 days off to get ready for the season opener against the Magic on the 25th of this month. So it is, as they say, about to be on and popping. So one of the big things that this team has worked on, that they've talked about, is obviously being better defensively. That was the team's Achilles heel, if you will, not being able to finish, which is probably the production of youth and not having guys that are veterans, that seasoned veterans, to help them through that process. And then, of course, not being great defenders. Here is head coach Ime Udoka talking about what he's seeing from the defense early.
Well, I felt, they weren't as sharp as they usually will be during the regular season, but our activity was great. We showed a bunch of clips today, staying active off the ball, being in the right position. We talked about pickup points and shifts and being in the right spots, and that's the result of that. Let alone, you got a guy like Kari and has great instincts, and they turn their back. He got 2 or 3 himself, but I think our activity was great, covering each other, so it was a product of both.
I know you just mentioned Tari, but was there anybody else specifically that you kind of showed in those film clips of, hey, this person really stood out against the Pelicans and how you want them playing defense?
Well, I think our switching was much better from game 1 to game 2, so in general it was the whole team, but looking at guys like Fred and Dylan, their positioning, they're in the right spots most of the time and cause some of those turnovers. So those guys, the veteran guys, we pointed out, but Tari, Jay Sean, their activity was great, being aggressive, going after the ball, and they dug out a few steals that way.
That was, head coach Ime Udoka talking about what he's seen in terms of from the defense early. That is really a focus. He knew that was something the team needed to get better at, and they have been doing that. Jabari, you heard him mention Jabari Smith Jr. So Jabari talked about how they are approaching preseason, and for him, he says, we're approaching it like it's a game, but this is really the goal for preseason.
Just winning. We just focusing on just building as a team. Whether it's preseason or not, we're going in every game with a winning mindset and just trying to work on us. Just playing within the offense and just working on the new scheme, new philosophies, and just growing into playing team basketball.
That was Jabari talking about what the focus is. And he said, hey, it's simple. We're just trying to win and get the winning mindset, but get used to winning and do the things it takes to win, right? Defense, working together, you know, creating the offense off of the defense, transition, all those things. He also talked about the veterans, having veterans, seasoned veterans as part of the team, how much that's helping them and what they can get from those veterans.
Communication is just helping us in what spots to be in. They've been around the game a long time, been in big playoff games, and they kind of know, they've kind of seen everything. When you get in the league for so many years, it's kind of nothing you haven't seen. So they can help us with different schemes, different how to guard different plays, and just stuff like that.
That is Jabari Smith Jr. Again, they are on the road in San Antonio. They played their third preseason game last night. Next game is Wednesday. It's tomorrow night. Let me pull up something from last night. I was watching that game when I got home from Minute Maid after doing post game, and I wanted to just pull up the box score. Wemby did not play last night. The Rockets started Dylan Brooks, Bullock, Alpe, Jabari, and Fred VanVleet. Jalen Green came off the bench and played 16 minutes, as did Aaron Holiday. Points last night, Dylan Brooks had 12, Fred had 12, and Holiday had 12. And Amen Thompson, I forgot about him. Amen Thompson and Cam Whitmore had 15 points each. Let me tell you, those young rookies look good. I like Amen. What I'm seeing from him early, I really like Cam, right? Cam Whitmore looks like he already has an NBA body. He has a feel for playing at this level. He is a rookie. There are things he has to learn, but you can't help but really like what you see for him. Like, he was 5 of 15 from the field last night, whereas Amen was 6 of 13. Cam ended with 4 rebounds. It was 1 of 7 from 3. Nobody's shooting particularly well from 3. Amen was 2 of 4. Let me see. Fred was 2 of 4 and Dylan was 2 of 6. So they're not shooting great from 3 yet. And but again, they're working through some things. It'll be interesting to see what ends up happening. Jayshawn Tate had 7 points off the bench and 5 rebounds. So yeah, it's early, but I think that Coach Udoka should be pleased with what he's seeing in terms of growth with this team. There were a lot of things they had to work on, and they seem to be buying into it. He talked about how the team defense is the thing that's more difficult to teach because people are used to maybe playing some one-on-one, but the team part is where they really have to work. And it's tougher from a coaching standpoint to instill and install that because you've got to bring all these individual pieces together. Doesn't that sound like what happens in your place of work as well? Or maybe even in your family, you've got to bring these pieces together to make them work succinctly, right? That's what teamwork is, and that's what they're working on. So, listen, it's preseason, and this 3-0 record won't matter once the season starts. The regular wins and losses will start when they actually keep count of them. These matter right now as you're working on things and getting ready to open the season. But in terms of the record, that starts to really matter next Wednesday, October 25th, when they travel to Orlando to open the season against the Magic on the road. They have 2 road games. They play in Orlando on Wednesday. Then they go back to San Antonio, which will be the 3rd time they face the Spurs in less than in a little more than a week, but they'll play the Spurs in a game that counts on that Friday. And then they'll have their home opener on that Sunday night against the Warriors, I believe. Is that what was the schedule? Yes, it is against the Warriors. So all of that is what's important. And listen, we are just about out of time for today. Going a little bit short because I have a few things to do to get ready for a couple of games and other things. But I appreciate you guys being part of the show. If you are not registered to vote, remember, get registered, stay registered so you don't have to get registered. And pay attention. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of stuff happening. If you've got some thoughts about what's happening with the war, I encourage you to pay attention. Find out what's happening. Let your representatives in Congress hear from you. Let them know your thoughts and let them hear from you. That's how we end up having a voice. Looking forward to basketball season. Yeah, me too, Charles. I'm looking forward to basketball season too. And I'm also looking forward to these Astros getting this series kind of turned around in Arlington. All right, that's it for today. I am out of time. Listen, remember, do something kind for yourself and do something kind for somebody else. If you haven't gotten the COVID vaccine, I'm encouraging you to take it. If you are not registered to vote, even though you can't vote in the next election in November, I'm encouraging you to get registered. And please, please, please share this video, share this show with your community, wherever you watch it. Make sure that you share it so that we can continue to grow the tribe. And Charles is right. Pay attention to Israel and the Palestinian people. It is important. All right, everybody, make it a great, great week. I'll see you next week on Chalk Talk at 11 o'clock. Peace.